1, go!
Bismillah. The most important questions that we should be thinking about as humans. Did we exist by chance? Is there a God? And where did we come from?
Okay, sure, those are questions that people could ask themselves, except for the did we exist by chance one. That one not really anyone thinks about until they really dwell within the debate between religion and atheism. In fact, when people learn about scientific explanations in which life came about, nobody really asks the question about chance. It only gets brought up when religious people claim that evolution is chance, which it's not, by the way.
The second major concept in evolutionary thinking is randomness. It's the role of chance.
I can make it clearer for you by giving an analogy. Suppose that, in order to get a river stream unclogged, a small rock needed to be shoved through a pathway in the river that had seaweed stuck in it. In this analogy, we don't have any conscious creatures who can just move it out of the way. In order to get that small rock to unplug the pathway, something else unconscious is going to have to launch a decent-sized rock. How's that gonna happen? Well, nothing controls the weather or environment in a world without God. It all just kinda happens. Now, if somehow, someway, the rock finds its way through that pathway and the river, you would say the river was unclogged by natural means through organic materials. But since nothing guided them, the only way any of those materials produced that outcome was entirely based on chance. Nothing planned for the rock to unplug the river. Nothing wanted it to happen. Every process causing it to happen was mindless, unconscious, and unintentional, which by definition makes the result an accident. Even if we move past the very important conversation as to why nature behaves the way it does, let alone in a very user-friendly way, we know that wind, for example, is not drawn toward blowing rocks into rivers. We know that rock formation isn't drawn toward moving rocks into rivers. None of these processes necessarily lead to these specific outcomes, so whenever they produce said outcome, it's luck. This will show you a very important basic fact. Without intentionality, cause and effect are the result of chance because nothing is guiding them, nothing is directing them, so they're moving about randomly with no goal in mind. Now, if you want to defend the logic behind that like so many atheists do, then go right ahead. But you can't sit here and claim that this isn't exactly what materialism advocates for. The reason why some atheists get so mad when you point this out is because they know that once this simple deduction is applied to evolution, it makes their entire materialist worldview look as incoherent as it actually is. Because now you have to believe in chance on a macro level, with zero intentionality. But you know, it isn't intelligent design that atheists have a problem with. It's just the transcendent, supernatural, godly kind. Check out Richard Dawkins' rationale behind this.
What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
But no matter how much you may dislike the chance hypothesis, that's what you're stuck with if you rely on materialist explanations. Now, even with all that aside, how the hell else could one come to a different conclusion? If nature is not operated by a conscious being, then its operation is undirected, unguided, and therefore, any outcome that nature produces will always be done by chance. It will always be the result of chance because nothing was planned out beforehand. And not even that deals with the issue of where nature comes from. What produces the laws of nature that make it bring about certain outcomes? If there is no conscious being, the answer will have to be chance. Every time.
It's either that we have came from nothing, or we created ourselves, or something else have created us.
Why must it be only those three possibilities? What about the possibility that we were created by natural means, by organic materials? Nothing intentionally created us. A problem I have with religious people is the way that they can't even seem to imagine all the possible scenarios. It's either this or that, while forgetting that there literally could be an infinite number of possibilities. This is especially the case for Pascal's wager, and it's the same thing here.
The option you just gave falls square within the option that we either came here by chance or came here from nothing at all. Saying that we came here or evolved from organic materials by natural processes says nothing about where those organic materials came from, nor why those organic materials behave in the way that brought about life on Earth. And since those organic materials can only form things by acting on random mutations, then life itself would be a huge gamble. Again, if those organic materials had no guiding or intentional hand behind them, then your option would mean that we came here by chance. These unguided materials popped into existence, and then they just happened to fall in the perfect place for all of us to be the way that we are. And even if you want to believe in climbing Mount Improbable that so many atheists love to preach about, and that it can start off in a primitive form and then get co-opted to form something else, first of all, there are like a billion problems with that. Second, it still doesn't even come close to addressing where those materials came from and how our planet in its perfect position happened to end up with all of those materials in order for it to make anything at all. If there is no conscious mind behind that process, the answer will have to be luck.
As far as whether we came from nothing, that violate the laws of physics and the law of conservation of energy.
The law of conservation of energy states that energy in an isolated system is conserved, or in other words, energy can be neither created nor destroyed. And if you honestly think the universe came from absolutely nothing, then that may seem like a problem now, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But that's not exactly the case here. See, the quote-unquote nothing that the universe came from may not actually be nothing after all. It's speculated that something was there that obviously wasn't matter that created the universe through a certain mechanism such as quantum tunneling. I won't get into too much detail since I am nowhere close to being a physicist. However, whether or not this process is known isn't relevant. What matters is that it isn't truly nothing that the universe popped out from.
For one, it's speculative, just like you said. You can't base scientific facts off of speculations, which is weird since that's exactly what you guys accuse us of doing. Second, if you explain away the nothing with quantum tunneling, then all you've done is kick the can down the road, and not very far, I might add. Blind, unconscious materials that exist beyond time and space, which themselves create time and space, and as you just said,
obviously wasn't matter,
sounds eerily similar to something a certain pantheist would say. At that point, you're just describing what theists would call God, but like a pantheist, you're identifying it as the universe. The problem, however, is that without an external factor to act upon it, those particles won't exactly get anything done if they're all that exists prior to the universe. Not that it's even remotely possible to prove that anyway. I mean, how are you going to scientifically observe what existed before the Big Bang? Funny, because you guys throw that criticism at us a lot when it comes to God. The universe requires a necessary existence, which we can actually argue is God. How can quantum particles be necessary? Never mind the fact that they're based largely on probabilities, so there are possible realities where they don't exist, or end up being different. In a realm with absolutely nothing at all, what makes quantum mechanics a necessary existence? Especially when its behavior is so probabilistic. You can't explain nature with another nature. Especially if that nature itself is, again, probabilistic. Why don't quantum vacuums produce new universes within this one? If they can do this without any cause, then why don't they do this all the time? Do they need to be in a realm of absolute nothing in order to do that? What's so special about nothing that allows for them to make new universes? Why did the universe have these properties and not others? It's the mark of a rational mind to question that which did not have to be. And if the universe did not have to have these finely tuned properties, then why did they end up with them? What about nothing makes quantum particles behave in such a wonderful way? Where did these particles come from? But if anyone's curious for a more in-depth and boring refutation to Laurence Krauss on this topic, check out the links in the description.
Nothing comes from nothing, and something always comes from something else.
You are trying to use this to argue that God created us and the universe. But like I say to almost every other religious person I respond to, how does that lead you to the conclusion that it's your God?
Whoa. So the argument is solid, it just doesn't prove a specific God? That's your only issue? This is the same thing that happens with every atheist who does this. They almost low-key imply that they're good with the argument up until the point where they can strawman it to say that the issue is that it doesn't prove a specific God to exist. But if I can prove that a God must exist, then atheism is finished, whether I establish Islam as the religion God gave us or not.
The title of your video is proving Allah's existence, but
No, actually, the video you're watching is a re-upload from the original video from the Ask a Muslim YouTube channel, which was titled, Does God Exist? This argument isn't meant to prove any specific God. It's meant to prove that there must be a God. Even if I don't establish theism or monotheism, I would definitely discredit atheism, which is all I need to do.
even if you somehow prove that the universe came from something else, that doesn't mean it's your God who created it. In fact, Christians use the same exact argument as you did just now. It's funny how it seems like you two religions are working together when this is the only part you can agree on.
Well, yeah, we both believe in the same God, so obviously we're gonna make the same arguments for him. But that's not all we agree on. We also agree that Jesus is awesome.
Let's say you defeated the atheist and you prove that the universe came from an intelligent being. What happens then? You and every other religion out there will be battling on whose God it is. That's what I want to see, because so far there hasn't really been much argumentation against other religions. Or in other words, there hasn't been much effort into proving why it's your particular God, and arguing against other religions could bring light to that subject.
What freaking rock have you been living under? There are so many examples of us doing this that even now, as I'm showing them to you on screen, I'm running out of words to say so that I can show you all of the examples in a reasonable amount of time. You think of yourself as some kind of unstoppable force of nature, but people in different faiths have been arguing about which faith is true for thousands of years, even well before Islam. And Muslims have also had many debates on this very issue for more than 1,000 years. I also have a YouTube channel where many of my videos are exactly that. Check them out. They might help dispel some of the nonsense you believe about Islam.
Did we create ourselves? It's like that we're saying that we exist and don't exist in the same time. Or it's like saying that our mothers have given birth to themselves.
Not really sure on who would even claim that the universe created itself. I mean, I can see why some people would say that, but I have yet to encounter anyone doing so.
Do you know that the age of our universe is 13 billion years? But the time it takes to create one simple human protein by chance, 634 million billion years.
I have heard this argument before, not a lot, but it's everywhere. Basically, the argument goes like this. They start off with the assumption that everything, according to evolution, is done by chance, so that includes the amino acids that build proteins. They claim that if we go with the style of rolling a dice or lottery, and every time we get a random sequence of amino acids, how long would we have to keep rolling this lottery before we get a correct protein? And they calculated it to be some crazy number, much greater than 13.8 billion years old. Anyone who uses this argument ultimately demonstrates a lack of understanding on how the evolutionary process works. Imagine it this way, we are rolling a lottery, but every time a correct number shows up, it is there to stay, while we keep on re-rolling the other numbers until they are correct. All of a sudden, it doesn't seem like it's chance anymore, is it? And it wouldn't take too long now, would it? And this process that allows the numbers to stay is natural selection. I know you didn't mention evolution specifically here, but since that argument is used so much against evolution, I can only assume so.
Several more problems here. The processes needed to get a working protein must be done accurately. If you roll the dices and the numbers are incorrect, you've screwed up the entire thing and you need to start from scratch. So saying, oh, but the correct number will be here to stay, is not going to solve the problem. Because whether we're talking about the universe or life on the molecular level, the moment you screw it up, game over, go back to square one. And that's just the beginning. You need to have millions of proteins working together to get one functional cell, and then countless other cells working together just to allow for the creation of a single living creature. Without a guiding hand behind it, there is nothing you can say about natural selection that demands that all of this happens accordingly. Unless, of course, you want me to believe that natural selection pre-programmed all of this. Good luck convincing anybody of that, especially if you still want to say that there's no intentionality behind any of this. Also, natural selection can't add information. It only deletes information that isn't working once it's already there. Natural selection only operates if you have nature. Before nature, natural selection has no say in anything. In a prebiotic Earth, for example, what's natural selection gonna do? Because chemicals have not yet formed the first living cell.
That's the age of our universe multiplied by 45 millions. And you still think you came by chance?
Nobody claims that we came by chance, but what people do claim is that we came about through some essential natural processes that led to the universe and life to what it is today. It is you, religious people, who are strawmanning the atheist position by claiming we believe that we came by chance.
Oh, so things do need to be set up in a precise way in order for us to get the proper result. So do you actually believe that evolution has a mind of its own or something? Because it seems to have known what it was doing. Besides which, what makes any of these natural processes essential? It's like you believe that prior to any life being formed anywhere, the laws of physics and nature were just laid out, somehow, and so this outcome was destined or something. It's really cool how mindless materialism really thought all of this out.
Do you know that human beings are made out of 18.5% carbon, 3.3% nitrogen, 9.5% hydrogen, and 65% oxygen?
Seems right to me.
For an average human being, that's about 14 gallons of water, 26 pounds of charcoal, and 3 pounds of air. If we pour all that in one bag, for how many years do we need to shake this bag to come up with a human being?
It doesn't work like that. You can't just put a bunch of things in a bag and shake it and expect a human to pop out of it. First of all, these things that you mentioned, water, coal, and air, they're not in the bonding conformation we need them to be to make up the molecules that cells depend on. These are raw materials. Carbon by itself can't be used directly by cells. Hydrogen and nitrogen in the air can't be used. We would need a way to convert those to the proper form before they can make up a cell. Second of all, even if we had those, it still wouldn't work. There's a specific structure that organizes these molecules to form cells. It's like your brain. Even if we get a whole bunch of live neurons and mix it together in a bag, we can't get a human brain because of how specific the neuronal connections are. Similarly, just because we have the correct atoms doesn't mean the structure can simply be built automatically.
Well, how about this? What if you took all of those materials and laid them out on the ground? I'll tell you, just wait a few million billion years through all the environmental changes and rock formation and possible storms or earthquakes that could destroy or at least separate them all, and then somehow, some way, they'll all be attracted to one another, and when that happens, they will form the exact form of the human body just like us. And this is the essence of Darwinism. Parts that, by any unguided normal means, not only don't come together to make a new structure, but theoretically can't due to them being in an uncontrolled environment filled with hostile things which, as Holy Kool-Aid so lovingly put it,
everything around us is trying to wipe us out.
And there's no shelter they can get from any of these environmental hazards, which of course include the fall and the winter seasons, which is the worst time to be a primitive, unconscious organism.
But what can happen is if life came about spontaneously and then under the guidance of evolution over billions of years get to the modern humans we have today.
NANI?
Roll that back.
But what can happen is if life came about spontaneously and then under the guidance of evolution over billions of years get to the modern humans we have today.
You spent all this time telling us that no one claims that we came about by chance. Then you look at us all with those cold, dead eyes and say that it can be that life came about spontaneously. Then under the guidance of mindless processes, we get life. You literally just advocated for both nothing and for chance. Nothing, since life comes about spontaneously, literally from no prior cause, just out of nowhere, ripped right from the atheist creation bedtime stories, and chance, since, once again, for all of time and space, for the entire age of the universe, the laws of nature just happen to be pre-programmed for life to give us this outcome. How did that happen? Well, either he believes that these laws came about by chance, or he believes that nature itself has a mind of its own, which would then defeat the entire point of arguing that everything is natural with no supernatural mind behind it. If nature is conscious, that would prove pantheism or panpsychism. Two ideas that would severely undercut materialism.
And you still think you came by chance?
F*** off.
Watch your mouth.
With all the current technology that we have, we were not able to create a robot that is as perfect and as sophisticated as a human being.
Oh, what a claim. Not only do you fail to define sophisticated here,
Why would you have to define sophisticated? I think it's self-evident that the complexity of the human body, even down to the cell and the parts of that cell, are far more complex and well-structured than machines.
you also seem to be ignorant on how big technology and artificial intelligence has become. You know they're coming for our jobs, right? The robots? Soon they will take over all our jobs, and the only real way to reach a brighter future is through communism.
So what? Yeah, we know that in places like Walmart, there are AI machines that run cash registers. We know that robots and AIs are getting more and more advanced with every new day of development. But all of them are, 1, the product of human design and intelligence. It's always funny to me how people try to debunk intelligent design by appealing to human intelligent design. And 2, these robots are only better than humans at performing specific tasks, like lifting things, cashing checks, facial recognition, and things like that. A single robot will never be able to replace a human in anything other than what it's been made for. It can't look like us, talk like us, act like us, socialize like us, move and fight like us, and if it ever came close to doing any of that, it would always be because of us. We make them in the first place. Lastly, even if they managed to do all that, they would still need to be managed by us. Unlike living things, robots don't heal from things like flesh wounds or muscle stress. They don't have reproductive cells. The only reason we're still alive is because our bodies can self-heal. Our muscles get sore, after a while we feel better and they get stronger. The inorganic material that robots are made of can never do that. So they would either need to take over the world and set up factories where they can do their own maintenance, which would require that humans make the robots, build the facilities for the robots, then allow the robots to kill all humans, all that just to prove that we can make something as good as a human. Or they would simply have to come to us for maintenance, proving once again our superiority.
With all the technology that we have, we were not able to create a camera closer to the human eye, 576 pixels.
I think you meant megapixels, not pixels. And yeah, sure, if you compare humans to cameras in terms of pixels, the camera obviously loses. But let's say we compare a human and a computer in terms of their abilities to quickly perform math.
Why? Why would you do that?
Like the ability to determine the standard deviation of a pool of 100 samples. Obviously, the computer would win.
Math is an acquired skill, not a natural part of the human body. We're not hardwired to do trigonometry or algebra. The human eye sees the world better than any device we've come up with, regardless of whether or not the human being even tries to make that happen. It does it automatically. If there was a part of the human brain that deals with mathematical equations, and that part was inferior to the computer, then you'd have a point. But there is no such part. We learn math. It's not in our nature. We do not, however, have to try very hard to make our eyes sharper than cameras. They just are. It's an inherent part of our bodies. It's like that by default. You should be comparing human physiological traits to similar traits found in machines.
With all the technology that we have, we were not able to create a heart closer to the human heart that could pump 7,200 liters of blood daily without any complications.
Are you saying that the human heart never has any complications?
No.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yes.
What about an atrial septic defect, where there's an opening between the two atria in the heart, allowing blood to flow backwards? Is this part of the heart never having any complications?
That is literally a defect. A heart, at its base, does not have these problems. Why do atheists always think that if they can find a possible bad thing, that being an illness or something like it, that must mean that there are issues with the body or life in general? Anything that goes wrong with the heart does so because of something external to it. Either a birth defect, which is usually because something's wrong with the parents, bad diet, or any other number of external causes like secondhand smoke or even injuries. None of that debunks the idea that the heart naturally pumps more than 7,200 liters of blood on a constant non-stop basis without issues. Like, if the heart had clogged up due to the fact that it was working all day, then you might have a point. It would be a life-threatening flaw of its own design. But nothing like that happens. The very fact that we're even having this conversation right now is proof that the heart was designed just fine.
With all the technology that we have, we're not able to create kidneys that could work 24/7, filtering 180 liters of blood daily and cleaning human blood from toxins continuously.
We have dialysis. And comparing that to a human kidney for the amount of blood filtered per day is unfair. On dialysis, each session only lasts a few hours, while the kidney is filtering blood 24 hours per day. What you should really compare in this case is the rate at which blood is filtered. Let's go by your numbers and say that the kidneys filter 280 liters per day. After doing the conversion, that's about 194 milliliters per minute. Dialysis machines can be adjusted to around 200 to 250 milliliters per minute, and this can be changed to a wide range of speeds by the blood pump. You know, that spinny circle thing in the machine?
Exactly. The kidney works non-stop without issues. Dialysis works less and does less, on top of being a huge machine that you would only ever be hooked up to if your life depended on it. People don't exactly swap out their kidneys for dialysis just because they felt like it. Those things are for critical patients. Meanwhile, I can walk around freely with my kidneys and do just about any kind of movement without worrying about maintenance issues.
Look, I wouldn't say that the machine is better than a kidney, because it obviously isn't.
Thank you, Professor. That is precisely the point.
But if you're going to do some comparisons, at least do your research first.
He did. The whole point was that the kidneys are better. He literally said that kidneys do far more blood 24/7. He made that part very clear. It doesn't matter if one machine can match the kidneys for a window of time. They'll never be superior to the kidneys that we have on a regular basis working every hour of the day. And if they stopped, so would we.
And you still think you came by chance? Or something else have created you?
If a god really did create us, he didn't do a very good job of it. There are so many flaws to the human body, I could go on and on about it.
Yeah, like you've done any of that so far anyway. A birth defect is not a flaw in the human body any more than a Trojan virus is a flaw in the computer motherboard. External things can damage things. This is just a sign that the world we live in isn't perfect. It is destructible, and like every Abrahamic religion says, it's not worth spending your eternity for. Like, the take-home message of salvation in Islam is that you shouldn't put all your eggs in the basket of dunya. True happiness lies in the life after this, and many parts of the Quran reference the trials and tribulations that people will experience from this world. So obviously this world has problems. A lot of them. They are intentional. If this world was perfect like so many atheists want it to be, why would God make heaven? If God were to prevent evil and suffering, why would he make hell? Why would he make heaven for those who persevere through suffering? Why would he make hell for punishing evil? I wish you guys would think about what we might say to your questions before asking them.
A creator that once said, يا أيها الناس ضرب مثل فاستمعوا له إن الذين تدعون من دون الله لن يخلقوا ذبابا ولو اجتمعوا له. O people, listen to this example. You are not able to create one single fly?
Yeah, no, we're skipping that.
Oh, why? Forget creating a fly, you aren't even able to make a cell for God's sake. The point he's making here with this Quran verse is very strong. It's basically, creation requires intelligence, yet this creation is so unbelievably complex that we aren't even able to make the simplest things in it with all our minds put together. It's a very powerful argument to be made.
A creator that's all-powerful.
So powerful that he needs mortals like you to convince people that he exists.
Whoever said that he needed us? We're doing this because he commanded us and will reward us for doing so. Allah says in the Quran that if he wanted, he could have made everyone believe in him. But this isn't his desire. It would be no different from handing everyone a one-way ticket to heaven. Moreover, the signs of his existence is the creation itself. We're just here to convey the truth right in front of you. We don't convert, we just convey. It's your choice at the end of the day. Choose wisely.
A creator that's all-knowing.
So knowledgeable that he knows what it would take to convince atheists of his existence, but instead hires you to spew a bunch of poor arguments.
So, knowing that he knows exactly what it would take to convince atheists, knows they won't accept it, so he sets up a punishment for people who choose to die on your path.
A creator that unlike his creation.
Yeah, not similar at all. One is real, the other isn't.
Well, that point went right over your head. He was just saying that if God is real, we wouldn't expect him to be like his creation. We don't expect the creator of space-time and matter to be space-time and matter. And since he's nothing like what we can comprehend, then he must exist beyond what we comprehend. You missed all of that just to make a stupid joke. Sad.
Allah, the Lord of Jesus, Moses, and Muhammad.
Yep, there it is, immediately jumping to your own god after all those arguments. I would love to hear your explanation on why it's specifically your god, but I don't think you'll even see this video.
No, wait. Allah actually is the Lord of all those people. Allah is God in Hebrew and Aramaic, the languages used in the Old Testament, as well as Arabic, and all of those prophets worshipped him.
If someone have given you $1 million, you be thankful for him for the rest of your life. But what about the one who have given you blessings that were worth millions?
Except he didn't give us anything really. What he did give us is an eternity in hell if you don't suck his dick. I don't know, man. I don't know if I could be thankful for that. Anyway.
Hold up! So Allah gives you ears by which you hear on a regular basis, eyes by which you see on a regular basis, a tongue by which you taste food, teeth to chew them, muscles which you use to move stuff around and operate in the world you live in, flesh to surround those muscles, as well as filling your face with that food which He gave you, and so many more things. And here you are complaining that He'll punish you for not worshipping Him for this? I'm sorry, but who the hell do you think you are? Under the Islamic worldview, which is what you're presupposing in order to make this counter-argument, you and me are nothing. God is the only existence which is necessary, and everything in creation owes it to Him. Not only would we not exist because of Him, but we wouldn't exist the way that we exist. So obviously, with that alone, Allah is worthy of worship. Then Allah adds to that by giving you immeasurable amount of gifts that you don't and could never deserve. But what do? You look down on all of that just because He'll punish you for eternity for not appreciating it? As though that's all He's done for you. You ungrateful atheist. This, my fellow viewers, is a perfect demonstration. This is why Allah made hellfire, because there will always be people like this who exhaust all other ways out and ultimately deserve it. But I don't want to be too gloomy about it. You can always see the error in your ways before it's too late, or at the very least, reconsider this statement of yours. Alright, that was kind of boring for me. Assalamu alaikum, peeps.
What can happen is if life came about spontaneously,